Welcome to another episode of FLIPSIDE with yours sincerely, Joy Chiwendu. We'll be looking at food scarcity. Yes, in focus, we'll be looking at food scarcity. Before I give an intro of what food scarcity is, I want to introduce our guest who is joined via Zoom call, Kenneth.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on your program today.
Thank you for
It's
joining.
really a pleasure to be joining your program today again.
All right. Okay, before we dive into the questions for today, a quick intro of what food scarcity is. Food scarcity refers to the situation where there is not enough food available to meet the nutritional needs of a population in Nigeria. Food scarcity is a pressing issue affecting millions of people across the country. This problem is driven by a combination of factors including climate change, which impacts agricultural productivity, yes, and economic instability, which affects food prices and accessibility. So let's dive into the questions that we have today. So first of all, for you, Kenneth, what causes food scarcity in Nigeria?
Okay, I think a lot of things causes food scarcity. I hope you
Mm-hmm.
can still hear me.
Yeah, I can. I can, loud and
Okay,
clear.
good. Now, a whole lot of things causes food scarcity, right? Number one, we look at the issue of financing, we look at the issue of transportations, we look at the issue of herdsmen in
Hmm.
Nigeria, looking at the case of Nigeria. All these whole issues affect food scarcity. I personally farm in Benin City. So when I was farming in Benin City, some of my challenges, so there's a whole lot of challenges surrounding that farmers are facing that leads to food scarcity.
Food
So
scarcity.
obviously, food scarcity means not enough food
Yeah.
for not we don't have enough of food for consumption for the masses. And what majorly causes that is when farmers are having challenges, fears of going to farm. So and some of those strategies are four. I'll just break it down. Number one is access to capital. These are four key challenges farmers face. One is access to capital, access to land, and then access to technical know-how. We don't have a lot of technical know-hows. I mean, years ago in Nigeria, we used to have what we call extension agents coming to your farms to pass the current knowledge, the current research that is currently ongoing. We don't have those things again. We don't have extension agents as we used to have back in the, let's say, 20 years ago. We don't have extension agents. And it's not like we don't have people who are trained extension agents. I study agricultural economics and extension services. So by what I study, I'm supposed to be an extension agent, right? So we have a lot of
Okay.
people, a lot of young people who are going to schools to study extension agent, but government are not employing them. They are not,
Okay.
they're not getting the jobs, and these are some of the challenges um, that leads to food scarcity.
Yeah, exactly.
And
You
yeah,
mentioned saying that there's little access to land. Come on, there's
yeah,
land everywhere. How would have little access to land when it is actually everywhere?
land is not everywhere.
It's
Now,
not.
no, land is not everywhere because getting land, acquiring land is a big issue. It's a big issue getting land. Um,
Okay.
I remember about 4 5 years ago, I was in the Ministry of Agriculture, and I told them I was writing the Ministry of Agriculture because years ago I also know that you could get some land banking from government, whereby they give you land and more like a loan. It's not yours. You pay some very little amount to acquire those land to farm. It was not granted for me. I mean, I'm talking about Benin City, those states. Minister of Agriculture, I've been there to their office. That would be 2017, 2018, 19. That's 2019, 2017, 2018. That period, 2017 to 2019. I went to the Ministry of Agriculture. I needed land, and it was not granted, right?
Why?
So I don't know. The only thing I could receive was that the government was having a project they wanted to launch, and I mean, up to date, those projects were not really launched. I'm not trying to hit on any
Okay.
government.
Okay.
Yeah, so but those projects were not really launched. But as a young man who needed the land to to farm. It was not granted, right? This was the what I experienced. It was not granted. They didn't grant me the land, and I don't want to believe there is land. There is no land. It's a big issue for farmers, right? Especially for young people coming to the space. If you're a young person, you want to get land. One of the ways for government to really attack food security. So can I have like a campaign or a program that says young people, there's land for you, like let's say 200 land, 300 land. You are providing seed. Seed is another big issues, right? There's a whole lot of debate right now in Nigeria regarding GMOs and are we supposed to use GMOs? Are we not supposed to use GMOs? But that's not the conversation. The conversation is, can government have a project that says we are empowering young people? You don't have issue with land, you don't have issue with seeds, you don't have issue with mechanizations. So we get you the machines, we'll get you machines to farm, and
But
it
are
can
there
be like
even
in a
young people
cluster
who are
sort of.
actually interested in farming? Look at the
Yes,
Generation Z, for example. Do you think any one of them wants to actually farm?
yes, my DM is full with a lot of young people DMing me, even up to before I jump up into this program. A lot of young people are reaching out to us. They are interested. I mean, gone are the days when we say young people are not interested in farming again.
Are
A
you
lot of
sure?
young people are already. Yes, I'm personally, I'm an example of a young person who has been in the sector for like 10 years. I started farming when I was still in school, using
That's
my school
interesting.
fund to farm, right? And a lot of people have seen it, that, especially if you go on Twitter, you see young people. Yeah, and sometimes I also feel like it's social
Social
media
media.
farming. Yeah, but you see a lot of people really hungry for this stuff. We want to go into agriculture. We want to farm. Now, let's see, how do we go make one of the things I really advocate for is how do we get young people into the agriculture?
Into the agricultural system.
If we want to achieve food security, we need young people in this space.
True.
Our forefathers, our grandparents, they are already weak. They cannot farm. If we want the young people, if we want to see food security, if we want to achieve young food security, we need to attract young people. Now the question is, how do we attract young people? Can we begin to? Young people are really interested. Some of the challenges they are facing is you can't compare the pay, the money they get from agriculture. You can't compare it to what they get in the tech space. But can we begin to paint, because a lot of pictures that have been painted about farming is that farming is a dirty job. There's no money in the sector. Can we begin to repaint that picture to young people? Everybody wants to make money. If I'm coming to the
Definitely.
agriculture, can I also see that the industry is viable enough, can cater for me and my family? And how can we achieve this? That's what I was talking about, government coming up with a program and say, let's design a program that says, we are empowering you with
The
land, we
youth.
are giving you seeds, we are giving you fundings, we are supporting you financially, we are bringing mechanization to the farm, and let's say you put like a cluster, and let's say like we have 50 farmers, 50 young people. Government is going to say, I don't know what to call the program. I would just, let's say, food security program for young
Okay.
people. And we have a lot of projects in the past, right? And design a policy that says we're going to empower these young people. All the things they need to farm is available for them, from the seed to the
And
mechanizations,
if they're
I
determined,
mean to
of
the
course, they will do
yes.
it.
If government provide all these things, trust me, it will be they will get more than 50 people that will be lobbying, or that will be applying for those kind of programs, because they are seeing the picture that, oh, this thing is going to be lucrative. And let's not forget, another issue we are facing is access to market. In farming, farmers do not really determine the price. The market is not really being controlled by farmers. It's the marketers that controls what the
Then
farmers
how do
bring to the
farmers make
market.
their
I mean,
gain?
yes, so they don't make profit. But can government begin to assure us that if after you produce, we will provide all these things for you, we will also
Okay.
buy it from you.
Okay.
That's a nice picture to paint. If for example, if I'm a young person, I hear that, oh, the land is available, the seed, the funding, mechanization, like technologies, like tractors and other things that we need to farm is all available for us. And why all these things are all available for us? If after my production, government is also assuring us that there's market for us, we'll get these things for you, we'll buy them from you. With that kind of assurance, people will be interested to go into the farming industry, right?
Okay,
So these
so
are the
let's
things.
move on first. Before we
Yeah,
continue to the challenges and aspects that we
yeah,
all need to look at, let's look at the
yeah.
climate change. how does the
Simple.
climate change actually impact food availability in Nigeria? Because with the weather, sometimes, like for example, tomatoes, for example, you can't plant tomatoes during the rainy season, right? Because it's a very fragile food product that it needs to be planted when the weather is calm and cool. Let's look at the weather. What do you to say about that?
I think if I talk about climate, Nigeria is also facing the extreme climate issues.
Okay.
Um, Climate is real. We are experiencing it, and there's a whole lot of conversation around it. And I'm really, really advocating for more young people who are saying, I really want to go into agriculture. Can we all begin to really come to this space, and let's not just also wait for government and talk about how we can solve our climate issues. Yes, we can eliminate government out of it, but can we find a way around it? It's a real challenge. For example, we have seen a situation whereby the seasons of rainy season, as we know it before, rain
Yes.
will not be available again. That's because of climate issues. We are experiencing flooding. We are seeing a lot of flooding here and there.
True.
These are all issues of these are all caused by climate issues. Climate is real. I did a post recently, yesterday, on LinkedIn. I was talking about some of the things that really cause climate issues is fossil fuel, right? And I was saying there's what we call sustainable fossil fuel,
Okay.
SAF, that's sustainable aviation fuel. And this fuel can be generated from waste in agriculture. Yes, it's a bit very expensive to move into that industry. It's a bit quite expensive, but these are ways we could encourage more young people. That, let's say there's a school. I think there's um, school of agriculture in
Yes, there is.
Igweben. Now, can government begin to think of um, how do we fund such a course? Like introduce courses that are interesting to young people, like SAF,
What
sustainable
really
food,
entices them?
yes, sustainable aviation fuel. I mean, when I did that post yesterday, a lot of young people was engaging on my post on LinkedIn and on Twitter saying they will be interested, but I mean, how do they even go into this
How
sector?
would they go
They
through
want to
it?
learn, but how do they go into that sector? These are potentials. These are some of the ways we can move from the issue of fossil fuel, because fossil fuel is causing, I mean, this is we are experiencing the issues of climate already. But if government can come into the space and say we are introducing a course that can train young people on how to generate sustainable aviation fuels and all that. I mean, it's quite expensive, but for a or for an individual, it's quite expensive. But with the help of government, they can be able to introduce such courses into School of Agriculture in Igweben, and young people can begin to be interested and see how they can leverage on those things and see how we can solve issues of climate issues. Climate issues is real. We have to, we cannot just put on government alone. Individuals also need to come to the space in terms of resolving the issue of climate, even up to how you your plastic, how we passing, how we the right word now is how we pass away our waste bin. I mean, our plastic after we drink our pure water, it just straight on the floor, causing issues of drainage and every other things. We need to be able to play our own thing. I mean, as an individual or in a country or as a
Individually, we have
citizen.
to work on
Yes, we
ourselves.
need to play our thing, our part in terms of, yeah, we need government, but we need to also play our part in terms of keeping the environment clean, the way we dispose our plastic. All those things are contributing to climate issues that
And
we are all
climate change.
experiencing.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
we
move
cannot
down
just wait for
to.
government.
You're
Yeah.
going to say something?
No, I wanted to say the issue of Lagos. Lagos had the experience of flooding
The
recently,
flooding,
and
true.
yes, we were screaming, "Oh, look at Lagos!" But some of those flooding was not really the issue of government. It was individuals who have dumped
Individuals.
their waste bin, their plastic in the
And
gutters,
water flows and
and it was
blocking the.
blocking
True.
everywhere and causing issues, affecting. But all these things can be addressed. While we are waiting for government, we can also play our part by, I mean, properly dispose these things. And in terms of climate issues, one of the ways we can really achieve climate issues is to go back to how we farm, regenerative agriculture. That's a new word that is being advocating for. And we'll talk about regenerative agriculture. Our forefathers, I mean, it's the Western world that just come up and say regenerative agriculture. This is how our forefathers have been farming. I mean, before you farm, before of old, you have to do your You have to do all those practices. These are how our forefathers were farming, even though they
So
didn't know that what they
our
were doing
forefathers were
at
been
that time was
farming,
called
yes,
regenerative,
but
yes, regenerative culture.
okay, our forefathers have been farming, yes, but how can
Yes.
modern farming techniques actually now improve our mode of farming?
Well, I think because you talk about climate issues already,
Yes.
I might be limited because I'm more vast in terms of our agricultural technology. But when you
Okay.
talk about modern day, we are now going back to in terms of agriculture, in terms of sustainable agriculture,
Mm-hmm.
what we are now advocating for is, can we go back to how our forefathers were farming? That was the most safe. That was the most. It was more better, more sustainable. The way our forefathers were farming of old was more better, was more
But
friendly
with
to the
technology, it makes
environment.
it easier, right?
Yeah, for me personally, with technology, I'm more for technology because I'm young, but
Okay.
looking at the issue of climate that you've already mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
because of the issue of climate, and as a climate leader, what we really advocate is sustainable agriculture. But in terms of sustainable agriculture, we need to still add technology. I believe, my own belief is this. I'm really finding the balance between, sustainable agriculture and technology. But
Mm-hmm.
my belief is this. I believe that, yes, we are facing the issue of climate. We're having issues of a lot of issues of around climate issues. But my personal belief is, with technology, we can be able to farm in a environmentally friendly way. We cannot really just eliminate technology completely. That's my own belief. Yeah, a lot of climate activists do not really agree. They are fighting technology. Personally, for me, I don't fight technology. I believe the
Okay.
future of agriculture is going to be driven by technology. And the earlier we accept it and think of ways we can bring in technology to solve some of our climate issues, to see how we can make it environmentally friendly, the better
Friendly.
for us. Yeah, the better for us.
Okay. So before we continue, we are going to go on a short break. So do stay tuned. This is the flip side on independent television. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying tuned. This is the flip side on independent television with yours sincerely, Joy Chiwendu Okmane. And right here with me in the studio, I have Comrade Emmanuel Ogbidi. Did I get that correctly?
Yeah, correct. Good afternoon and good afternoon, viewers.
Okay, thank you for coming. We've been talking with Kenneth for some time, but now let's switch to Emmanuel and let's see what he has for us. Okay, so Emmanuel, my first question to you is, how does inflation affect the price of food in Nigeria? Inflation, how does it affect the food in Nigeria?
Okay, first of all, we'll look at the basic definition of inflation. Elementary economists will tell you that inflation is when you have a lot of money or a lot of money chasing fewer goods. In other words, you have high level of demand but very short supply. Okay,
Okay.
that is what comes about inflation. Now, if you say how does inflation affect food supply, I'll tell you that food is a necessity. It's a very, very necessary commodity for the survival of man. So what that suggests to us is that every day you have demand for food. You have demand for gari, you have demand for rice, you have demand for your tomatoes, your vegetable, because human being depends on food and all of this commodity to survive. And if every day you have certain level of demand and consumption, and there is no supply, there's no adequate supply to match up with the corresponding level of demand, you have inflation. So that's basically will amount to inflation in food, in food aspect, because we are not producing enough such that is adequate for the population, and every day you have growing population. Definitely that culminates in demand and increase in demand. So if you have increase in population and increase in demand, there is no adequate farming activities to match the supply, adequate supply to match all demand, then there will be inflation.
Definitely.
In food commodity, in a essential commodity like what we are having in the country today.
Right now.
So basically, I'll say that we have very scarce food commodity, and we have high demand
Of the food.
for the food items, and that's what bringing about inflation.
Okay, looking at the insecurity in food right now, because most farmers will plant, and then you hear, oh, somebody came or they stole my crops and all that. What can you say about that? Because if there was enough security, in my opinion, that we would not have such issues like food scarcity, apart from the roads and other challenges that we may face.
Yes. Now, you see, food insecurity and insecurity in general are like Siamese twins that you cannot separate. There is a very strong nexus between both, because for us to have food on our table, and for us to have food available at the market to buy, it means that the farmers should have to be able to go to their farms, cultivate their crops, and have them harvested successfully and transport them to the marketplace. So let's start from the very first one. If there is insecurity in the land, definitely there will be food insecurity, because the place, the very foundation where these food are produced or generated, you can't access them. The farmers can't access their farm
because of the insecurity.
Because of the insecurity in the land. So the insecurity of the country, of a particular state where such cash crops are produced massively, is a direct factor to affect the availability and security and food security. That is one. Then two, we have the aspect of infrastructure. It is no longer news that our federal roads in Nigeria are deplorable, are in sham, are in very bad shape and conditions, such that even when farmers are able to, beat around the insecurity they have and the threat of life, and still be able to go to their farms and bring out some of these crops and foodstuff. Yes. It is like a gladiatorial combat to move those food items from the north or from wherever they are produced down to the marketplaces because of the bad roads. As a matter of fact, sometime last year, where we have the federal road around the Ekpoma axis, we had trucks of, name it, onions, carrots, vegetables, tomatoes, food crops, wasted on the highway. Haven't spent days and weeks on the road because they were unable to pass. Imagine. So if you have infrastructural deficit as it has to do with road, then foods are not available. Those food can be secured. Those food can be preserved. Then that's another factor. Then we also look at the farmers' headers clashes. Okay? Now, aside from just the terrorist aspect, you have where we've seen clashes that herders take their cattle into farmland
to eat,
either because of reasons they say drought, or they say scarcity of grasses or shrubs for them to feed their cattle. They lead their cattle into farms and into the barns, the yam barns, and the grains, the silos of farmers in the forest, and they eat up their crops in the name of wanting their cattle to survive. Surviving on the crops of farmers. So that also becomes a very a very huge challenge.
Actually,
Then
yes.
we look at the human factor that has to do with artificial scarcity and unionism on progressive union activities that find themselves as a middleman between the producers, the actual farmers,
And
and those who buys from them. So you find people who are not farmers, who are not buyers, they do nothing, but they stand as a barrier that you have to pass through them
Before
to
you
access.
can pass.
As a buyer, for example, you have to pass through them to access farmers. So that brings about high level, high cost of this food item. And when food are not accessible because of the high cost of such commodities, it also amounts to food insecurity.
True.
Because when farmer cannot sell at a particular price, and the buyers, the consumers cannot also buy because there's no adequate access of funds or availability of funds to them, those crops still, tend to amount to wastage.
True.
Because they cannot meet the actual purpose of which they were produced all the same.
All the same. So all these factors come down to reasons why food is scarce,
Yes.
even with the ones that is not meant to be scarce,
Of
but
course.
because of those people in the middle.
Those factors.
Those factors. Okay, interesting. So we've talked about some challenges that farmers do face, and we've mentioned the roads, the fact that some people could just be at the middle and say, you have to pay this amount before you can pass. Makes things quite difficult for even the customers, the end users, to have access to food. So let's move on to what regions in Nigeria are most affected by the food scarcity. What regions especially?
You see, I think practically now, there's no aspect of this country where there's no hunger in the land.
So it's everywhere.
Everybody are affected directly or indirectly. And that is why we have always said that Nigerians must now begin to engage issues when it comes to governance, when it comes to politicking. We must grow beyond the sentiment of primordial sentiment of partisan affiliation, ethnic affiliation, or religious affiliation. Because when the chips are down, everybody will feel the bite. As it is now, we are discussing food insecurity and scarcity. Everybody, every aspect, including in the north, where these food are produced, it is scarce there.
It is scarce there?
It is scarce there because I'll tell you why.
Why? Because it needs to be accessible to them.
You cannot compare the availability of food in the north 8 years, 5 years ago to what it is now.
What is it now?
And you cannot compare the price as at 4, 5 years ago to what it is now, because practically it's obviously higher than what we used to have.
True.
At the time in 2014, I can still remember buying a bag of rice for 12,500. But today, a bag of rice is between what's it called? Is between 85,000 to 90,000 naira. Local rice, for that matter.
Local rice, actually.
As a matter of fact, when I say 12,500, we're actually talking about foreign rice, because local rice was about 8,500 and what have you. So, look at the north. It is scarce. Then, what they have there is practically insecurity and being unable to access their farm. Then, when you come down to the south, you have the challenges of both the insecurity and the infrastructural challenges, which means transportation, being able to transport and bring those goods down to the south. So it is biting harder in the southern part of the country, but generally everybody is feeling it. I must say, everybody is feeling it. And if we have responsible government that is able to solve or resolve to the barest minimum the aspect of insecurity and road infrastructure, these issues would have been mitigated to a very large extent, as such that we will not be feeling the pain and the bite. Nigerians will not be having it this bad, because today I will tell you that there is hunger in the land, so that even if you have your money in your hand, it is very difficult for you to even get exactly
Enough
what you want. You have to
want.
manage, you have to make do with what you see. As a matter of fact, very recently we have people now advising themselves that you can no longer prepare tomato stew because tomatoes is now
Gold.
it's now like
Expensive.
the new gold, if you ask me. So people have to go for vegetable, because both are actually vegetable.
Even cucumber.
Or even cucumber stew. You know, you can actually do vegetable stew instead of looking for tomato stew. And alternative is becoming the new norms. And that is where people have to put on their thinking cap, because survival is very key.
It's very key. Okay, let's ask Kenneth, what does he think the role of public awareness, what does it play in food security in Nigeria?
Well, I think, thank you very much once again. For me, I think the role of public awareness is very important. There is need for us to scream and then see how we could, the public should be involved, get the public involved, bring in the public. Um, Also, let me also say this. I think this we are on a program like this, it's also very good for us to tackle some of the issues of what what the government are also trying to do. Just looking at the recent announcement, there is now Ministry of Livestock. Now, I'm tripping this one in as regarding the role of public awareness,
Awareness.
that a lot of people need to be aware. Now, I think a week ago, the president announced a new ministry which has never been existing. Which before now, there's a department in Ministry of Agriculture that has livestock, but the president has recently announced that we now have Ministry of
Of
Livestock.
livestock.
Well, while we think the intention of the president is good, there's also a lot of questions that have been raising by on social media that have been seen, which says some people also felt like why was the need of Ministry of Livestock? Why we have Ministry of
Ministry of
Agriculture?
Agriculture.
Why separating them since the department was under the ministry before? Why are we separating them? And there's another key question that a lot of people has really raised. For me, I think the intention of having both was good. Government wanted the livestock farmers, like especially like cattle farmers, they wanted them to really benefit as much as the crop farmers are benefiting. They wanted the livestock, so it makes sense why separating them. So public need to be aware of those kind of information. That's why I'm discussing them here. But the key question is who the president. My key question for me is the person the president is appointing. Why we have
Okay.
the president having good intention, but the person that has been appointed, that is being appointed, does he understand the agricultural sector? Does he understand the problem we are facing? Has he practiced agriculture? Has he been involved in agriculture? I mean, these are some of the questions that have been really generated, and for me personally, have given me a lot of worry. We've seen I think in 2014, 2013, we had the Minister of Agriculture, Akiwemi, who was really good because who really made an impact in the industry because he had the understanding, he was involved, he understand the pain point of agriculture of the people, and he was able to solve those kind of issues. Um, for me, Minister of Agriculture is fine. Having them separate is fine, but like I said, the key question is the people being appointed. Why the decision is good, but the people being appointed, do they understand the pain points? Do they understand the problem that the farmers are really going through? Why bring somebody who study engineering or medical science, for example, to come and lead the Ministry of Agriculture? And why, for example, also taking somebody who study agriculture to go and head
I believe you understand
Ministry
where
of
you're
Heights?
going to.
So what has it? But for your question, let me back to your question. Is for the people, there is really need for us to have public awareness. There's need for us to have conversations like this on for public to be aware of what is really happening in the agricultural sector. For us to discuss how young people need to, not just young people now, for us to discuss ways people need to come in. If there is need for the public to be really involved, There's need for us to carry the public along. There is need for us to create a balance between the private sector and the public. There is need for us to create our awareness. And in
Okay.
doing that, is being done like we're having conversations like this, involving in on social media. There's a whole lot of conversations going on Twitter. So if you're into agriculture, interested in agriculture, you want to know what's really happening. Twitter is like the best place to be. To I mean, follow people. You can follow me on LinkedIn or Facebook or on Twitter to have more conversations like this. There's need for public to be involved in
To be
it.
very
There's need for you
informed.
guys to be informed. There's need for you to know what's really happening in that sector, so you
All
can
right.
know the areas to hold the government accountable, and so you can also know your own role. What role do I need to play
All
in the
right,
agricultural
Kenneth.
sector?
So, give your
Yes,
last advice to every one of us watching and listening to right now on how can
okay,
we now, how will I say this, provide for ourselves to ensure that we
yes.
do not run out of food in our homes. Your last advice to us.
My last advice on that would be everybody should go
Yes.
into farming. Everybody should go into farming right now. With the situation on ground in Nigeria, everybody should be go into farming, go into backyard farming right now. Uber farming. So there's what we call Uber farming. Uber farming is like where you can use your bucket, and these techniques are very, very friendly to the environment. Uber farming, where you use your bucket to farm, where you use your backyard to farm. So go, everybody right now should have at least a little garden where you can plant your own tomatoes. Tomatoes is expensive, but yes, can you plant your own? Yes. So my own advice right now is that everybody should become a should be involved. I don't want to use the word farmer, but everybody should be involved in food production right now. That your little backyard. What can you plant? What kind of
Nature-based
vegetables? You can plant ugu, you can plant tomatoes, you can plant
bitter
a lot
leaf
of
and
things.
all. All
Yes, in
right,
that
all
your
right.
little garden. That's my big advice for everybody right now. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Kenneth, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Definitely, you're welcome. So, Emmanuel, your last and final advice to us. I had other questions, but we're out of time. So, your last advice to us.
Okay, just to add to what my friend said, that it's quite really unfortunate that our leaders, they are not really in touch with the current realities of what the issues
Yes.
are and what the issues that the farmers
Actually
really
facing.
are actually facing, and issues that are affecting some of these or causing some of these challenges. The truth is that having a new minister of livestock, for example, is he going to operate in the moon? Is he not going to operate within the same conditions where such ministries or such department was operating when it was a department? What extra focus is he going to bring into all of this? We must understand that the challenges that affect that sector is the policy. All over the world, ranching is the way forward for livestock farming, and just 2% of people going into ranching as a way of livestock farming, they are feeding a whole nation and even exporting beef in other civilized communities.
Countries.
So creating ministries and all of that, expanding cost of governance and bogus what have you budget and all what have you, does not help. So my advice for the way forward is that we now need to engage, especially here in the south. There is virtually almost nothing that you cannot grow in the south.
And it's how true.
But when we tend to get certain things available, we just throw them off. Oh, beans come from the north. We just agree that we should begin to buy. Nobody wants to grow.
Right.
Pepper can grow anywhere, even in this
True.
studio. Pepper can grow, so we can grow pepper here in the south.
Okay.
We don't need to wait for the north. So everybody
Alright.
should actually go into farming.
All right. Thank you, Imani, for joining. Thank you for watching and joining us on today's episode. Until next episode of Flipside, I remain yours sincerely, Joy Chirindo Akwani. Bye.